Hi there, I'm Christy Wilhelmi from Gardenerd. One of the questions I get asked a lot from both students and clients is, what is the difference between compost and mulch? It can be confusing. Both words can be used as nouns or verbs, and sometimes they're even used interchangeably. So let's break it down. First, let's talk about mulch. First of all, think about mulch as anything that covers soil. And so that can be anything from an inorganic material like plastic sheeting to newspaper or cardboard or burlap or chip mulch made from biomass like this pile behind me. Think of it as raw material. The thing that mulch does that's really important to know is that it serves two functions and possibly more depending on what kind of mulch you're using. Mulch is meant to cover the soil so that it, A, prevents weeds, and B, holds moisture in the soil. But if you use the right kind of mulch, meaning usually a chip bark of some kind, wood chips or something chunky that has a lot of carbon in it, it will also do a couple of other things. One, it will feed the fungi in the soil, and two, as it breaks down, it will eventually become a form of compost. There's also something called a living mulch, and that can be something like a cover crop that you've grown or some vining thing that lives on top of the soil, is alive, but is protecting the soil with its plant material. Think sweet potato vine or nasturtiums. Those kinds of things can come in handy. And for example, in the Three Sisters garden, when you're growing corn and beans, squash is being used as a living mulch. So those are also considered mulches. Generally speaking, the larger the piece of wood or whatever it is that you're using for your mulch, the longer it will take to break down. So for example, a medium chip bark is going to last a lot longer than a shredded mulch. One of the reasons I highly advise using mulch on all of your soil surfaces is because not only is it going to help retain moisture and keep weeds at bay, but it is a fungal food. If you look at the soil food web, there are bacteria and there are fungi, and those are the very beginning of the soil food web. And bacteria feeds on sugars coming out of the plant. But fungi really likes to feed on humic acids from a plant, but also chipwood. So when I have soil that's really compacted and not in really great shape, I like to put down a thick layer of mulch. I mean like 3 to 5 inches, water it well, and leave it there. And in a few months, it's gonna dig like butter because the microbes have come in to start breaking down that mulch and make the soil friable without me having to lift a finger. Now let's talk about compost. Think of compost as the end result, a finished product. Whereas mulch is raw material, compost is a finished product. It's also the combination of brown materials, carbon materials, like the dead corn stalks and leaves and twigs and all that kind of stuff, and in combination with nitrogen ingredients like your kitchen scraps, your garden biomass that is still green, your grass clippings, any animal manures, not dogs and cats, but livestock manures like horse manure, cow manure, or chicken manure, or goats. Goat manure is awesome. So is rabbit manure, but I digress. When you put browns and greens together in a pile or a bin, a chemical and a biological reaction happens. This is something you don't get from mulch all by itself. Compost happens as it breaks down, as the microbes go to work on it, as that chemical response between carbon and nitrogen happens, the material starts to break down into something that looks a lot like soil and is almost unrecognizable as what it started. So that's the main difference between compost and mulch. If you think of mulch as a raw material and compost as a finished product, that will help you distinguish between the two as far as what bag to buy in the store or make for yourself. The other thing you need to know about compost is that compost yes, it has some nutrients, but it mainly is an inoculum. Because if you think about it, all those microbes have been hard at work breaking down that material, and what you're left with is billions of microbes in a teaspoon of compost. So when you put down a layer of compost in your garden or around your fruit trees or in your berry plants, and you scratch that into the soil surface, you're depositing microbial activity, microbial life into the soil. So one of the things that I like to do is put down a layer of compost and then put mulch on top of it, and then you've got this super layer of inoculum with fungal food right on top of it, and they're gonna get, all of that is gonna start incorporating into your soil on its own, and that will start to bring your soil back to life. One point of confusion: you can use compost as mulch. That is something people do. Oftentimes, if they're shutting their gardens down for the winter, they will spread a layer of compost on the garden beds and then leave it there over winter, and it will start to work itself in, but it'll be right there waiting for you in the spring when you return. In gardens like mine, where we're gardening year-round and there isn't a lot of rest, we're applying compost to beds before we plant each season, and we're using it to fertilize a little bit during the season. Now, usually I will mix a little bit of fertilizer or worm castings with compost and use that as a delivery system and sprinkle it around each plant, scratch it in, and water it in. Because again, you're putting down nutrients, but you're mainly putting down biology, and it's the biology that synthesizes the nutrients, making them available for your plants. So I like to put those down in combination because it does the job much better. Let's take a look at the physical difference between mulch and compost. Think of mulch as a woody biomass that is made up of chip bark or any kind of raw material that is going to be chunky and take a while to break down. You can connect with an arborist to get chip mulch like this, or make it yourself if you have a shredder. Compost, on the other hand, while it starts out with the biomass that you associate with what could be mulch, it breaks down over time and really starts to look like soil. So you can see that most of this is broken down. There's still some big pieces, and I would sift that out, but this is close to being finished compost. We're gonna let this go a little bit longer, but when compost is supposed to look pretty much like soil when it's done, and at that point it's ready to use. So to summarize, think of mulch as raw material that covers the soil, and think of compost as a finished product that inoculates the soil with microbes. If you can keep that straight, you've got it made. If you like this video, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Hey, Mittens is here, so that you can find out when our next video comes online. Consider becoming a Patreon subscriber to help support the free stuff that we do here at Gardenerd. Come here, sweetheart. Look, Mittens is here. Look. Oh, but she doesn't want to be on camera. No, no, no. Hi. See who's here? She just wants to make noise. Hi. Consider becoming Hi, Mittens. Consider becoming a Patreon subscriber to support all the free stuff that we do here at gardenerd.com. And of course, you'll find information about compost and mulch in my book, Gardening for Geeks. And be sure to check out my latest book, Grow Your Own Mini Fruit Garden. Happy gardening.